My name is Beth McKay, and I am a Technology Implementation Specialist with the Department of Digital Innovation for Montgomery County Public Schools.
Muy buenas noches, gracias por venir. Yo soy Beth McKay, especialista de implementación de tecnología del sistema de escuelas del condado de Montgomery.
Bonsoir et bienvenue à la réunion. Je m'appelle Beth Mackey et je suis la technologienne qui est en charge, je suis la technicienne qui est en charge d'implémenter les technologies pour le système de MCPS.
As you've noticed, we have two interpreters. So at this time, if you would prefer to have the presentation in your native language or a preferred language, we have a Spanish interpreter as well as a French interpreter. And at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little globe icon. You would click that.
Bueno, simplemente quiero indicarles que contamos esta noche con dos intérpretes. Si ustedes prefieren escuchar esta presentación traducida o interpretada a dos idiomas disponibles, español y francés. Al pie de la pantalla ustedes van a ver un globo terrestre y ahí pueden escoger la opción que ustedes deseen. Muchas gracias.
Bon, comme vous pouvez voir, pour cette réunion, nous avons plusieurs langages. Nous avons l'anglais, nous avons l'espagnol et nous avons le français. Donc, si vous désirez recevoir l'interprétation dans un des autres langages, s'il vous plaît, allez en bas de l'écran. Vous allez voir le petit cercle qui ressemble à une terre et vous allez choisir le langage.
I'm going to start those interpretation rooms for our interpreters, and we will get running.
Thank you. We're good to go. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, good evening. I'm Beth McKay, and I work for Montgomery County Public Schools in the Department of Digital Innovation. Thank you so much for taking your time tonight to learn about a very important topic. You've probably seen the recent headlines and or a news story about digital exploitation, also known as sextortion, and thought it was probably a topic far removed from our community. But digital extortion is a harsh reality that profoundly affects all communities, including ours. This isn't an easy conversation, but it's a crucial one. Our goal for tonight is to shed light on these sensitive issues and equip you with the knowledge to better protect your children as well as yourselves. Next slide, please. We hope that during this webinar, you will gain an understanding of sextortion and the impact on youth, understand the extent of the problem in Montgomery County, Maryland, learn how you can help prevent your child from becoming a victim, understand how to respond if your child has been victimized, as well as learn about resources available in Montgomery County Public Schools, as well as in the community that can help. We're grateful to be joined by a diverse group of partners who are committed to addressing this challenge head on. Before we dive in, we want to extend our sincere thanks to the following individuals for their invaluable help and support in bringing this important webinar to you. Next slide, please. We have Ross Goldman from the Department of Justice, Dane Honorio from MCPD, Kristen Best from the Department of Homeland Security, my colleague Carla Garcia, Tina Bigdelli, who is from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Dr. Christina Conley-Chester, who works for MCPS as a director in psychological services, Stephanie Wallace, who is an MCPS supervisor for well-being and social work, and Chief Marcus Jones, the Chief of Security and Compliance for Montgomery County Public Schools. I would also like to thank our colleague in the Department of Digital Innovation, Jason Milkey, for his technical assistance in making sure this webinar runs smoothly. Before we begin, I want to note again that this presentation covers extremely sensitive topics. During the presentation, any important links will be shared via the chat feature. You will have the opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A, and we have built in time at the end of the presentation to answer any further questions you may have. Thank you again for your time. I'm now going to introduce Ross Goldman.
Thank you, Beth. And good evening, everyone. My name is Ross Goldman. I'm the Senior Appellate Counsel in the Child Exploitation and Obscenity section in the Criminal Division in the Department of Justice. I also spearhead our office's prevention efforts with respect to keeping children safe and helping prevent kids from becoming victims of sexual exploitation. Very happy to be here tonight. Next slide. So what I'm going to do is sort of give an overview of the problem, what we're going to be talking about here from a sort of 50,000-foot perspective. And the first thing is to sort of just get on the same page with some terms that we're going to be using tonight. So online enticement is a term that generally refers to an individual who communicates with someone believed to be a child via the internet with the intent to commit a sexual offense or some other kind of misconduct with respect to a child. It often involves trying to persuade or induce or entice a child to take some kind of, in our space here, some kind of sexual act. Generative artificial intelligence, many of you may have heard of before. It's a type of artificial intelligence that has the capability of learning from and mimicking large amounts of data to create new content. So you might think, for example, of an artificial intelligence platform that's a sort of text to image type platform where you can enter in text, show me a picture of a dog on a baseball field playing with a tennis ball, and the AI platform will then generate an image that is responsive to that prompt, for example. We're also going to talk about deepfake images, and these can be done with artificial intelligence or through other types of technology. But a deepfake is basically an image that has been manipulated through technology to depict something that did not actually happen, either depict a person in a setting or doing an act that that person did not do, or in a place the person was not, in fact, present. And the variations of deepfakes are very broad, but the basic commonality here is a manipulation of an image to make it appear as though something is happening that did not happen. And then we're going to talk about sextortion, which is the sort of centerpiece of our presentation tonight. So we can just, with that, go to the next slide. And here we're going to talk about sextortion. And I want to give an overview of what is the general fact pattern that we see with sextortion. There are different permutations of this, but as a general matter, this is what happens. An offender anywhere in the world targets a minor anywhere in the world online. Maybe they contact them. Maybe they reach out to them through Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever the online platform is. And the offender will pretend to be a sort of peer of the targeted minor. And they will say, hey, Josie, I live in the town next to you. I know a bunch of kids that go to your school. Like, you're really cool. And they'll strike up this kind of like friendly, flirtatious kind of conversation online. And the offender will, in the course of that, induce the target to send a sexually explicit image of himself or herself. How does that happen? It varies. Sometimes the offender will send an image of, for example, a teenage girl. If the offender is pretending to be a teenage girl, it could be a sexually explicit image of a teenage girl. Say, hey, here's a picture that I sent you. Will you send me one back? You're really cute. I'd like to see one. The targeted minor sends an image back, thinking this is all just a sort of flirtatious online conversation. And immediately upon sending that image, the offender reveals himself not to be a peer of the targeted minor, but an extortionist, and immediately says, if you don't pay me money or send me more pictures or do something else, accede to some other demand, I'm going to release the image of yourself that you just sent me. I'm going to release that to everyone you know. I'm going to put it up on Twitter and Facebook. I have all your Instagram contacts. I'm going to send it to your high school principal, your basketball coach, whatever the case may be. And it's there's maximum amounts of pressure that these offenders put on these kids to comply with the demand, be it money or imagery or something else. That's the kind of basic setup of sextortion. There is now, what we're seeing more is a sort of generative AI wrinkle to the sextortion problem that is really exacerbating the crisis. So in the sort of, this is a relatively recent phenomenon, but nevertheless, in the traditional sextortion case, as I said, the offender has to persuade the targeted minor to send an image of himself or herself. With generative AI, that sort of barrier, that hurdle goes away. The offender can pull some benign image of a targeted minor from Facebook or the internet. Could be a kid at his local soccer game or a basketball game or in a school play or whatever. It's totally benign. Use AI to manipulate that benign image, again, to create a deepfake, and then threaten the targeted minor, if you don't pay me money or send me real imagery or something else, I'm going to release this image to everyone you know. Now, the kid knows in the AI deepfake variation, the kid knows that's not him, but it sure looks like him. It's really realistic. And so the kids, it gives them no comfort really to know that this picture is not actually them. That's kind of the sextortion, the actual underlying conduct and what happens. Next slide, please. Now, there's within the universe of sextortion, there are two main motives. One is what we refer to as financially motivated sextortion. And this is where the object, the offender's goal, is to get money from the victim. And so here the threat would be, if you don't pay me money, either use Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, whatever, if you don't send me a gift card, I'm going to release this imagery to everyone you know. The motive here is not sort of sexual gratification or anything sexual. The end goal of the offender in cases of financially motivated sextortion is money. And what we usually see here is that the victims of these financially motivated sextortion schemes are overwhelmingly teenage boys between the age of 14 and 17. There is another goal of sextortion, another sort of bucket of sextortion that is more geared toward an offender wanting additional imagery. Gets the targeted victim to send an image or uses AI to create a sexually explicit image of the target, and then says, if you don't send me more images or images of you doing this or that, then I'm going to release this imagery to everyone you know. That kind of non-financially motivated sextortion, we generally see the victims in those kinds of cases are usually girls. So you have financially motivated sextortion is one big bucket. Victims are teenage boys. That's what we're seeing more and more of now. Sextortion done for purposes of obtaining additional sexual imagery, where that is the end goal, we're seeing that usually victimizing girls. On the financially motivated sextortion, what we refer to as FMS. Again, the major apps are the ones that the offenders use. Think Instagram, Snapchat, and others. But we also see that offenders app hop. So they will make contact with a target on a particular app. They will establish a connection, and then they will move that communication to some other platform, maybe, largely, often, a platform where the communications are encrypted, such that the only people who can see the content of those communications are the two people involved, that the company can't see it. It's very hard to get access to that content. Again, in the financially motivated sextortion cases, where think here about the predominant electronic payment companies, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. This is what offenders want victims to use to transfer the money. This is what we see happening. With financially motivated sextortion, what we see is that the overwhelming number of offenders are located in Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire. There are organized criminal syndicates in these countries that have become very adept at targeting kids around the world, very much including the United States, sort of at scale, and really trying to prey on these kids sort of sense of fear about what could happen if they don't comply. Next slide, please. So just to get a feel now for how bad the problem is, in 2022, NCMEC, the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, which is the US sort of central clearinghouse for what are called cyber tips, sort of reports of this kind of misconduct from either technology providers or individual users. In 2022, there were 10,731 sextortion-related cyber tips. In 2023, that number more than doubled to 26,718. And in 2024, we don't have the total numbers yet, but NCMEC reported roughly 100 financially motivated sextortion reports per day. So we see this expanding, becoming more problematic. The pressure that these offenders put on these kids is overwhelming and crushing. There have been more than 36 United States kids who have committed suicide in the last few years as a direct consequence of having been the victims of sextortion. And as a mark of just how intense the pressure campaign is, the suicides will often occur within hours of the initial contact. Not even the initial threat, the initial contact. This is an overwhelming pressure campaign that these offenders are putting on these kids. And even the kids who don't go through and commit suicide, many of those kids suffer severe emotional and psychological trauma as a result of being victimized in this way. Next slide, please. So that's a very broad overview. And what I hope it conveys is what are we talking about here as a matter of fact? Like, what are offenders doing and how are they doing it? But also to give a sense of the scale and the severity of what's happening. This report that is linked to here on this slide is a report that is sort of co-produced by NCMEC and the nonprofit Thorn, which has a whole set of data points and information and graphs about kind of all aspects of the sextortion crisis, where offenders are located in the world, where victims are, percentages that use various apps to communicate, to pay, that kind of thing. So for more information, I very much would suggest that you look at this report. And so I hope that at this point there's a sense of the nature and gravity of the problem. And I'm happy now to cede the floor to my colleagues who will talk more in detail about what's happening in our Montgomery County community, and then things that we all can do to help keep kids, to help prevent kids from being subject to this kind of harm. So I'll stop there and pass it back.
Next slide. So my name is Dana Norio. I'm a detective in Montgomery County with the police department here. I've been in the child exploitation unit for 13 years, a part of the FBI field task force officer for about 8 years, and the Maryland Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for about 13 years also. So here in Montgomery County, we've seen all the different variants that Mr. Goldman mentioned, and I'd like to add just a few more. Talking about the one where a relationship is involved, where the child will have something of a boyfriend, girlfriend type of relationship. And then, he talked about the one that happens immediately following. There's these other ones that are a little more drawn out. The child thinks that they're in a relationship of some sort. And then when the child wants to get out, the kind of tables are flipped, and they kind of come after them, requesting more images and videos, or worse, we've seen here where they ask the child to self-harm. Through burning, cutting, producing more material, or to stay in this online relationship. The financial ones he already mentioned. The sexual ones are where you have like a local child and another local child, or a local adult and another local child, where after the breakup, the images and videos are kind of used to threaten them to maintain the more in real life, as the kids say, consensual sexual encounters, which would be rape. So we have 4 detectives and a sergeant. We handle about 1,900 cases a year we receive from NCMEC involving CSAM and then sextortion. Those are our 2023 numbers. Next slide. So typical situation would be something, young person is online, they're friended, let's say by Instagram or Snapchat. The perpetrator has kind of like, I don't know, put something together in their profile that makes it seem like they're somebody that the person knows, or the targeter may have even researched the kid a little bit to have some, oh, I go to this school. Do you go to this school? Oh, do you remember me? Completely fictitious. And the kid strikes up a conversation. Everything seems hunky-dory. They have a very innocent, like, oh, oh, what do you think? How do you think that I look in this bathing suit? Or how do you think that I look with this dress on? What are your thoughts? It seems somewhat innocent. And then that just kind of sometimes goes further and further along where they're, oh, what do you think about this bra? What do you think about this underwear further along? And then where they're exchanging nude images back and forth. And then a lot of times you'll have the two engage in mutual masturbation via live video chat. Everything seems, fine as far as the kid involved goes. And they will take that video and use some of that deep fake technology that Mr. Goldman was talking about before, splice in a different person. Oftentimes, child sexual abuse material or CSAM, send it back to the child and say, this is what I'm going to send to all your contacts on your Instagram, all your contacts or email addresses at your school, to your administrators, to your parents. And unless you continue to give me material, or in worst cases, do other things like self-harm. Next slide.
Okay, I think I'm now going to share a real life example. My name is Kristen Best. I am the Department of Homeland Security Coordinator for Countering Crimes of Exploitation and Protecting Victims. Our Homeland Security Investigations is one of the leading federal law enforcement agencies in this space. We consider online child sexual exploitation and abuse, specifically financial sextortion, one of the most serious crimes that we are dealing with right now. And so I was asked to share a real life example that we dealt with recently within the department alongside our partners with FBI. So we had a 15-year-old teenage boy located in the Midwest who received an invite from an unknown person on Snapchat to become friends. The invite had a picture of an attractive female teenager, and this teenage boy accepted the friend request. They began chatting over a couple of hours. This was via Snapchat. And at some point, the girl requested a picture of the teenage boy. He sent over just a photo of him playing sports, nothing nude in it. It was just a normal photo that you'll find on any teenage child's social media account. And very quickly upon sending the photo, she sent a photo of herself and turned the conversation sexual and requested more imagery, specifically with his clothes off. He responded, said he was uncomfortable in doing that, and it went silent for a little bit of time. And then a response came from her with a generative AI image, what Ross was speaking about earlier. The person used a generative AI tool and nudified the image that the teenage boy had sent. And following that image were a number of texts threatening him to share the images with his friends, with the BBC, saying that he was a sexual predator and they were going to report him for sharing nude images online unless he sent money. At this point, the teen recognized what was happening and he challenged the person and said, I know what this is. I know this is sextortion. I'm not going to respond to you, and stop the conversation. Unfortunately, within about an hour or so, the teenager received a phone call via the app. And this is new for us in law enforcement. We had not seen this tactic, utilizing that dial phone application within a number of these apps, and the teenager picked up. And what he heard on the other side was not a teenage girl. It was a man, an adult male with an accent, threatening him, yelling at him, saying, "You will pay me money." And I can only imagine what this teenager felt receiving a phone call. Very different when we're texting. None of our kids like to talk to us. They just want to text. And so they now hear a voice yelling at him and threatening him. At this point, he hung up the phone and he contacted his aunt. He didn't feel comfortable going to his parents. And this is something we hear about often. These kids don't want to share with us what's happening. They would rather delete it, figure it out themselves, ignore it. But fortunately, he shared with his aunt what was happening. And she was able to get him support. I think it's really important for all of you to understand that, like Beth said, this is something that people don't want to talk about. You think this isn't going to happen to you. This all happened to an employee of the department. And this child knew what to do because his aunt works for Homeland Security and shared with him these crimes and how to stay safe. And so sessions like this, what Montgomery County is doing tonight, is incredibly important. And I'm very happy to be here as part of the department. I will share that this teenager is safe. We did connect him with law enforcement, and they are continuing to investigate. These are not quick crimes. You are not going to see a criminal behind bars immediately. It takes a long time, which is why education is so important for our children, for our parents, for adults who are engaging with children who can be that safe space. And so thank you, and I will turn to the next presenter.
Thank you, Kristen. Can we go to the next slide, please? Good evening. My name is Carla Garcia-Nacle, and I'm a technology implementation specialist here in Montgomery County Public Schools. As you've heard, we've shared some very alarming statistics, and like Kristen shared, very real life examples. So the question that we ask is, as a caregiver, what can I do? Next slide, please. So we want to start off with talking about communication and how communication is key. We encourage you all to talk regularly about what your students and your children are doing online. This will include what applications they're on, social media accounts, any games, names of different friends. We also encourage open dialogue about anything uncomfortable or confusing that they encounter and that they feel safe enough to be talking to you as their trusted adult about these things. We also want to encourage not to teach our children not to share any personal information online to anyone. This could include their full name, where they go to school, their address, or anything that could be personally identifiable to them. Modeling good digital habits is also a great way to encourage this online safety. We encourage some screen-free times that could include maybe during dinner, bedtime, family time. And we also encourage you all to be digital role models for your children. So what they see in your habits is shaping their own habits. Involve them in setting different boundaries to build trust and digital responsibility. The next thing we would encourage is some digital safety ground rules. So that would be having our children go through strong passwords on any device that they're using or any application, and adding multi-factor authentication to it. Anything that is downloaded, like an app or a game, should require parental approval. Set clear time limits for daily device and internet use. And it's really important that you are familiar with the parental controls on these devices on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, any social media things like Instagram. Turning on safe search filters in search engines and YouTube to block inappropriate content as well. We also encourage to keep devices in common areas, not in their bedrooms, especially at nighttime, which is usually when they're unsupervised. Check their privacy settings on social media and gaming platforms regularly. And know their screen names, usernames, and friend lists, and you can review and approve these online contacts as well. If you are able to recognize any of these risks, it's important to report them. So discuss the dangers of online strangers, cyberbullying, and scams. Teach how to recognize phishing attempts like suspicious links or free giveaways, and always have a plan. Teach them how to block and report users and tell a trusted adult immediately. Next slide, please. On the screen, you'll see some QR codes for some current MCPS resources that we have. You can feel free to use your phone to scan these, and it goes directly to the link. And also Beth has put these links directly into our chat for your use. So we have our cyber safety website. We have a webpage on digital citizenship, and as well as the Office of System-Wide Safety and Emergency Management. Next slide, please.
All right. Thanks, Carla. Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Bigdelli, and I'm with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So we've heard a lot about the risks that children are facing online, specifically sextortion, and how they are being targeted, and the impact of that harm. And Carla just talked about some of the strategies for reducing a child's risk and trying to help them stay safer online. So what are some additional things that we can do as parents, as trusted adults, to empower the children in our lives so we can, again, continue to reduce their risk and hopefully prevent sextortion specifically? So I think that really starting with the fact that you are here today, you are sitting in on this webinar and using this as an opportunity to bring up the topic with children in your lives. So you can do it directly. It's really as simple as saying, oh, I just watched this webinar. I just learned about this new topic. I really want to talk about it with you. Have you heard about it? And asking them open-ended questions and starting the dialogue that way. You're going to notice that there's a common theme throughout this entire presentation. All of us are saying it, is that there needs to be ongoing dialogue and conversations with the young people in our lives. And I'm just going to continue to reinforce that. Really, we would like to kind of push 3 main messages when you're talking to the young people in your lives. The first one is that sextortion is a thing. It's something that's happening to a lot of kids. It exists, really directly and clearly talking about what it is. And number 2, I would say if something like this happens to you or to somebody that you know, one of your friends, I am here for you and I am willing to support you and help you through it. It doesn't matter what time of day or night it is. Wake me up. I am here for you. And this is really important because, as Ross mentioned, the exploitation, the threats are happening very quickly. They're often happening at night, and children don't even have a chance to really process what's happening because they're under this intense pressure. And so we want to plant that seed so in the back of their mind, they know that they can come to us. They're not going to be in trouble. We are here to help them. And we're going to focus on the actual wrongdoer, not on the child. One thing that we've also heard over and over again from survivors is that they didn't know that this is something that happens to other people, and they didn't know that there was help. So that's another reason we want to make sure that we're really talking about it, explaining that this is not something that happens once in a while. This happens to a lot of people, and that there are a lot of folks that can help, not just the parent to help them navigate the systems, but there are places like NCMEC where they can report, law enforcement. There are people who are specially trained to deal with these types of cases and to not just help them navigate through it and stop the threats, but also take down any content that might be online and hopefully prevent it from continuing to circulate online. And really, the reality is that most people don't know that these resources exist. NCMEC plays a big role in this, and we work really closely with our technology partners. And then the third message is, I know you may not want to talk to me, but there are others that you can talk to and help them identify those other people. Kristen shared a great example of a young person who wasn't comfortable going to their parent, but knew that they could go to their aunt. And so we want to make sure that we're helping those young people in our lives identify the different adults that they can go to, the different people that they can trust if they're in this situation. Obviously, we want them to come to us, but they may not always be comfortable doing that. So walking through it, naming people, asking them to name people that they could rely on and lean on, if it, not just specifically sextortion or this type of online exploitation, but they're in a situation where they feel uncomfortable and unsafe and they need help navigating. Who can they tap into? So those are really the three main kind of messaging that we really want to push. So name sextortion and these online risks, talk about what they are and that they exist. Let them know that you are there for them and that you are going to help them through it no matter what. And also help them identify other people they can tap into if they are not comfortable coming to you. So other adults that they can rely on. And of course, reporting it, right? So them being able to know that there's help out there, a big piece of that is knowing to report that and where to report that. So NCMEC Cyber Tip Line is one of the main reporting tools. It's a national reporting mechanism for any form of suspected sexual exploitation, especially sextortion. And then we have other tools as well. Take It Down, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And you can reach out to NCMEC for assistance as well through the email that's on the screen. Next slide, please. So again, I'm gonna say it over and over again because the way we all learn is to hear the message over and over again. The most effective tool that each of us has when we're talking to our kids to help prevent sextortion and other types of crimes is to have ongoing conversations, to talk to them about what's happening in their lives. Have conversations about healthy relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but healthy peer relationships, healthy adult relationships, and really talking about the digital and in-person component, not like they're separate things, like an online relationship is separate than an in-person relationship, but that they are intertwined because all of our relationships are intertwined right now in that way. Talking about boundaries, how to set them, how to navigate them when somebody's pushing your boundary, healthy sexual development, consent. These are all really important topics and they shouldn't be a one-time thing. It's ongoing. I always say, and it sounds a little bit corny, but look for those teachable moments, right? And the easiest teachable moments are listening to music, watching TV or a movie together, and especially because you're not face to face, so they don't feel that additional pressure. You can, when you're in the car and a song comes on, it's a great opportunity to just ask them open-ended questions about what they think that something means, or what do they think about that lyric? Do they know anybody that's been impacted by something like that? And it's just an opportunity to get to know your child, what they're experiencing, and how they're thinking about these issues so that you can help them, again, navigate through it. It's also really important to talk about how we can be respectful community members, how we shouldn't be engaging in bullying, harassing, resharing images, sexualizing images, so creating fake images of other people. We have to have really explicit and direct conversations about it, because if we're not having those conversations, they're going to have them with other people who might influence them in a negative way, or they might get caught up in engaging in activity that can be really, really harmful to other people. We want to help them build empathy. And part of that is really talking about the impact of, and when we're talking about this specifically, the impact of sharing and creating sexual images, and how, what can that do to a person if that's being passed around school, or if they didn't give consent to you sharing an image or creating a sexual image of them. What could that do to that person? How is that going to make them feel? What are the long-term impacts? What are the impacts on you? And really highlighting that they have power in this. So the simplest, I used to run groups with adolescents, and I often used to talk about the very simple things that they could do if they came across an image, from the lowest barrier to ones that take the greatest amount of courage. So lowest barrier is deleting it, or not, or reporting it to the app, or just simply not sharing it. Nobody's even going to know, but you are not going to be contributing to harming another person. And talking about the fact that offenders, they really weaponize the shame that victims and children feel if their image is being shared like this. And the only way that we can take that weapon away is to change how we individually are responding to those images circulating. So it's a way to empower our children to really take a proactive role in preventing this harm from happening to their peers as well. Next slide, please. So I can pick this up. So we really want to make sure that we are paying attention to the warning signs, and I'm going to talk about kind of more specific ones that you might see. Often people refer to them as red flags. But really kind of the biggest like red flag is really changes in your child. So changes in their behavior and their thinking process, their feelings, their appearance. Now, of course, young people are always changing. That's part of adolescence, right? They're going to be pushing boundaries. They're going to be taking risks. They're going to be really challenging our own values even, but really paying attention to kind of where that shift is going. And is there something happening that could be considered alarming? So let's go to the next slide. So when would I be worried? Next slide, please. I'm going to talk about some specific red flags. All right. So some of the factors that can increase a child's risk are on this screen. Now, I want to make sure that we're not focusing on just one of these. Kids that are going through something you might see these red flags, these factors that might increase their risk altogether. But if you're seeing this, we want to make sure that we're addressing it and getting in front of it. So one of the ways we like to often explain or like frame these issues is really looking at this is really sophisticated cybersecurity issue where offenders are really taking a strategic approach in how they're victimizing children. So they're getting more and more sophisticated, which can actually make it really challenging to spot. But if we are being proactive in the conversations that we're having with the young people, we're really paying attention to their behaviors and how they're acting on and offline, we can hopefully, something will tell us in our gut. And so we can take action and dig a little bit deeper. These offenders, they're not just, randomly friending kids out of the blue. They really are being strategic and looking for groups of friends that they can infiltrate. Because the reality is that if you have a friend in common, you see that somebody's connected to somebody you're much more comfortable accepting that follower friend request and having a conversation with them. And really, so that's kind of one piece of it, and really talking to young people in that way, but also paying attention to how are they using social media? So are they only socializing online? Are they feeling very isolated? Are they having trouble making friends and socializing offline? What type of information are they sharing online? What are they seeking online? Are they seeking acceptance, validation? Are they, because they're having trouble making friends at school, is this the only place that they feel like they can make friends? Are they exploring kind of who they are and their interests? So all of those are things that we need to identify and help them with navigating and finding those things that they're looking for so that they're not solely reliant on the information and the people online and isolated from the people who care about them to help them navigate it. Next slide. So specific to sextortion, really you can see some of the very clear red flags that sextortion might be happening. And I do want to just emphasize that as Ross explained earlier, this is, especially with financial sextortion, it's really, really fast. And parents have told us, parents have been with their child during the day and not realized this was happening. So because of how fast it happens and how the pressure that they're putting on children. But again, we can still be proactive and still pay attention. So just some kind of common and very clear red flags. So they're being asked for any kind of money. That's why is somebody asking for you to send money? What's the purpose of that? Where is it going? If you notice that money is going missing, so keep an eye on their financial transactions. If they have bank accounts, really paying attention. If you're seeing that money is going missing and they're not able to explain what that money is being used for, that could indicate that something more is going on. It could be sextortion, also could be something else, right? Are they more upset than usual? Is there a sense of urgency to be online more or at very specific times? So again, these are, changes in their behavior, and then also kind of that financial component that we're seeing tied to financial sextortion specifically. Next slide, please. So if a young person is going through this, it can be really, really scary and very, very isolating. It's very common with any kind of exploitation for someone to feel embarrassed, to feel like they did something to deserve it, so to feel that kind of guilt. Young people are also very concerned about not just being blamed by their parents or by law enforcement, but also their technology being taken away. And that's their kind of their lifeline, right? Think about how attached all of us are to our personal devices. And if that's taken away from a young person, that is incredibly scary and incredibly isolating. So that is a reason that a lot of young people have told us that they don't come forward or they don't ask for help. They also, again, these offenders are using how society looks at children and shames them for engaging in sexual activity and that information being shared online, right? So they will use that also against them and say that they're going to get in trouble. We heard an example of, somebody using generative AI to create CSAM, and then it's not even a real image of that child, and threatening to distribute it, or threatening to say that this child has now harmed another child and abused another child, and so they are scared of the police, or they're scared that nobody's going to believe them, and also just this being minimized. We see this in particular with older youth. I think sometimes it feels like it's not going to be taken as seriously. Or if it's a fake image of the child that has been created, people might think that, oh, well, it's not a real image. Like, you weren't actually abused in that image, but the harm is still the same, and it still has long-term impacts. And so we want to make sure that we're very openly and explicitly talking about who is to blame here. The person to blame is the offender. It's not the child. And to understand that engaging in sending images is now kind of a part of relationships. And we need to be talking to children about the risks in doing that, but make sure that we're not blaming them if somebody violates their trust and uses that against them to threaten them or to share it with other people. Next slide. So now, what do you do if your child or a child you know is a victim? So the next few slides, we're going to talk about resources. Next slide, please. So your child shares or discloses, or you start, you're noticing those red flags, you start asking questions, and now you think that your child has been a victim of sextortion or another type of online exploitation. It's as difficult, you're going to feel a lot of feelings. We love our children. They are the most important people to us, right? We want to protect them, and we never want them to face any kind of harm. We also want them to make all the best decisions, all the safest decisions that they ever can. But the reality is they're humans and they're going to make mistakes. And also there are people out there that are going to intentionally harm them. And it's really important that if a child is sharing, disclosing that they have experienced any of this harm, that we are not putting any blame on them. First of all, it takes so much courage to ask for help or to say out loud that something like this is happening. There's so much, we already talked about all of the barriers to disclosure, right? So how we react can play a really big role. It can really set the stage for their healing. So really being mindful of our facial expressions, of our reactions, really remembering that they are young, they are learning, they are going through a lot of the same trials and tribulations of testing boundaries and pushing limits that we went through. They just now have the internet as another place that they have to navigate and understand the risks of. And that the reality is the person who committed the crime, the person who is wrong, is the person who's blackmailing them, who is harming them and threatening them, not them. So yeah, maybe sending a sexual image is a risky thing for somebody to do, but the person that's actually did something wrong, that is the bad person, is the person who's threatening them. And we want to make sure that we are emphasizing that, and we're reminding ourselves that too. And also, as a parent, as an adult who cares, be sure to reach out for support. And NCMEC actually provides a lot of support to caregivers so that you can show up fully for your child when if they're in this situation. Next slide.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So this next is just some resources we have for Montgomery County. You have the National Center, of course, 1-800-THE-LOST. You can visit their website at cybertipline.org or email them at gethelp@ncmic.org. And for the Montgomery County Police Department, we have a non-emergency number, 301-279-8000. And then you have our unit here, the Child Exploitation Unit, that works internet crimes against children, that includes sextortion. And then we also have school resource officers that have training on this and similar topics that you can always reach out to, or a trusted adult, either in your school system or as the example showed, a relative, but just that trusted adult that the kid has somebody. And that's something you want to identify when you have these conversations. If the kid doesn't feel comfortable going to you, who in their life can they go to with this information? Next slide. All right, so this is guidance for prevention and harm reduction. So I guess the first thing would be to sit as a family and decide to make a plan and then follow it. You want to kind of create that learning environment and be prepared. You want to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I always advise that out to PTA groups. It is just something you could sit down and talk about the human interaction with our phones, and it gives a good history of the neuroscience and the technology that kind of developed and made us all kind of want to doom scroll our life away sometimes. The other part, just have a conversation with them about it while you're watching it or afterwards. It's just a great place to start to realize what this interaction with our phones are. Know the passcode to all your kids' devices, no exceptions. Simple enough rule. If you want to set it up their phone, if you're going to give them a device or a phone, you want to either through Google Play or iCloud, you want to use an email address that only you have access to. And the simple rule of thumb is that so that they can't go into the email account and then change the settings that you set up through the iCloud or the Google Play Store. And so that they have to come to you for the app. So that just giving them a free range, if you will, of all the apps is probably something that we do not advise. It's so that they have to come to you to download an app, and that's where the parent or caregiver responsibility comes in, where you have to do the research on the app and decide if your child is mature enough, responsible enough to use that particular app, given the risks that we've all kind of talked about. There's not really an age so much as know your child and where they're at maturity and responsibility wise. Learn the parental controls on the kid's phone, tablet, computer, video game system. Yes, it's a lot of work to navigate all these things because predation for these kids, whether it's extortion or otherwise, occurs on all of them. There's not like a safe thing to use. So there's many resources, and YouTube or the many resources that NCMEC has. If you go to NetSmarts, is also an excellent resource of material. Next slide. It's already been mentioned, but place the kid's phone and devices in the caregiver's room at night, period, full stop. Ask yourself what good comes from a phone a kid uses in their bedroom at 2 a.m. A lot of this stuff, as already mentioned by Mr. Goldman and others, is that you have the world's predators coming into your kid's bedroom at night through their phone and their device. It's that simple. So just remove that ability by having the phone and the devices stored in the bedroom at night, in the parent's bedroom at night, so the kids don't have access to them. Next would be learn to say no to your kid. They can endure it, although it feels like death to them sometimes. With these things, you're going to have to learn how to say no to them, and they're going to have to learn how to accept that. It may be uncomfortable and stressful for both of you, but it'll be okay. You'll both get adjusted to it. Learning to tell them no will help them inform themselves and make good, sound judgments to be able to say no for themselves later. Teach them and yourself about digital privacy. If they're going to create a social media account, have them use fake profiles with aliases. Teach them not to give out personal information online, like address, their actual name, the school, town, date of birth, work history. Just put something out there that's fictitious so that somebody online can't connect the dots. Tell them to be very thoughtful, as already been mentioned, about the pictures they actually put online in any capacity. It's unfortunate that this is like where we live at now in 2025, that people can just take any picture and then transform it and turn it to some kind of child sex abuse material when it was never intended to put out that way. But this is the reality we live in. Teach them about critical thinking and reasoning skills, values, character, morals, delayed gratification, impulse control, and emotional regulation. That was a lot of words in a row, but all of that stuff plays into this stuff that kids, when they interact online and they get hooked on these phones and they get hooked on these behaviors online, it's something that will mitigate those things so that they don't necessarily find themselves in these places necessarily to begin with. Try to go with role playing, like ask them to kind of role play it with you, run like a simulation with them. Hey, you're online, you're talking to somebody, this is what happens. What's your plan? Have them go through the steps. Do it multiple times. Treat it like a fire drill. Why? Because when it actually happens in the real world, they can refer back to it. They can recall back to it. They know exactly what to do. When you have no conversation with the kid, none whatsoever, they have nothing to refer back to. And oftentimes they're just kind of stuck and they freeze. And they often follow through and go along with whatever the targeter, the perpetrator, the predator is asking them to do online. And then, it's already been said, but the time you spend on your devices with your kids will impact how often they use them. And the whole idea about the concept of both prevention and harm reduction as a strategy is that if harmful things cannot be addressed soon after occurring, worse things will oftentimes occur. Next slide. So like just managing them, let's say they come to you and they said, hey, this happened, this occurred. And it could be before the fact or after they've been engaged with some period of time. Take their devices, put them in airplane mode, do not turn them off. Do not delete photos, text, videos, or other messages, even though it might seem disgusting, it's something that you want to get rid of. Freeze. Treat it like evidence like you see on TV or CSI. Just freeze with the stuff. Do not send the evidence to other devices. So just like, oh my God, this is horrible. Let me send this to your uncle. Look at what happened. No, don't do any of that stuff either, especially if there's CSAM involved. And don't contact the offender. A lot of times we'll see parents that just in the moment, they're really upset, they're really emotional, and they want to tell them that they're contacting the police. They're going to find them, whatever the case is. Just let the conversation die on the vine. And next slide.
All right, so I'm going to jump in and talk about Take It Down, which is one of NCMEC's resources. So I mentioned the cyber tip line, which is really the most comprehensive way where NCMEC can provide support. It's a place to report any kind of suspected exploitation, including sextortion. But we understand that not every young person is going to feel comfortable doing that because reporting to the cyber tip line is not anonymous. So we developed a tool called Take It Down that is an anonymous reporting tool. So this is not for third-party reporting. This is for that young person who has taken an explicit image of themselves and they have access to that image on their own device. And they're either concerned that it's going to be shared online or they know that it's circulating online. They can go to this website and report it here. And so when they report it, we don't take any personal information. All we take is the what is called a hash value, which is just really a serial number for that image or that video, for that file. And we add it to a list that the other companies that are participating in this program have access to. And then they can then proactively scan their sites and review and take down the explicit content. That will also help prevent it from continuing to circulate. Now, again, this is not for third-party reporting. So this is not for, as a parent, we don't want you to take a screenshot of an explicit image that's on another device or that you see posted online. This is that one, we don't want you to have that content on your device, but also that digital fingerprint changes every time the image is altered in any way. So if it's a picture of a picture, then that'll have a totally different digital fingerprint. Or if it's been changed in any way. So we really want it to be the original photo or original file that's circulating online. So this is really meant for that young person who has access. So I send a picture to somebody, now I'm worried they're going to post it online, then I can report those images. Even if I'm not sure it's posted, I can report it to take it down. Again, this is anonymous, so there can't be any kind of follow-up on our end. So if as a parent or as just a trusted adult, you want to make a report, we encourage you to report to the cyber tip line over Take It Down. Next slide. Okay, and then so additional resources from NCMEC. So I've talked about cyber tip line as a way to report. Anybody can make a report there, as much or as little information as you have. Take It Down as an anonymous reporting tool for young people. And then we also have an internet safety program called NetSmarts. So we have content for children as young as 5 years old, all the way up to 18, as well as for parents and caregivers. And it's a wide range of resources from presentations. So let's say you're a teacher or a coach or a scout leader or youth group leader. You can take our presentations. They're age specific. You download them from our website. They're totally free, and you can present them to your group. We also have tip sheets. We have posters, videos with discussion guides, really a wide range of resources. And we also have an online learning platform called NCMEC Connect. Everything is completely free. And if you are interested in, sharing resources in your community, if you reach out to us, we're also more than happy to kind of help you navigate the website and even send you some materials that are not easily printable from our website. So this is a great, great resource to take back and to not just using it to start conversations with the young people in your home, but also just in any programs that you're involved with. Next slide.
And so we want to make sure that the audience knows that, we understand the impact that this can have on a child's mental health, and that there are free resources, mental health resources that are available in all of our schools. And so we have school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers that are available in our schools that can provide, again, free mental health support to our students. We also have, and we have on here the link in the chat and the QR code to the website where you can get more information about the school-based mental health staff that are available in all of our schools, both in elementary, middle, and high school. We also have a link to different community mental health providers that are available within our schools to provide support, and also information around the Maryland Safe Schools tip line. And this is another free resource that is available for our families and our students. You can both call the number. It also has an app that you can go on, and you can anonymously report instances of whether it's instances like this or instances of bullying that's occurring in your school, harassment, all kinds of things. We get all kinds of information that's reported to the tip line. And the information goes to both MCPS staff like myself. It also goes to our partners in the Montgomery County Police Department. It also goes to the Maryland Center for School Safety. And so, and including, again, within my MCPS, myself, like Chief Jones, our other safety and security staff. And so we want to make sure that our families have a good understanding of the resources that are available that are for free. We also have community mental health providers that are in the majority of our schools. These are external providers that also provide mental health services in our schools. And so if your family has insurance, they will bill to your insurance for these services. Again, it's their mental health services that your child can receive while at school, so you don't have to worry about taking them away from school to go to a mental health session. We have these services within the building. And if you don't have insurance, our community partners will work with your family around this. And so, again, there's a lot of mental health services. I'm the director of psychological services. I support many of these initiatives, as well as our supervisor for school social work services, Ms. Wallace, is also on this call. And so we have lots of resources available to you if you are interested in receiving some of these mental health resources for your child.
We want to again thank you so much for attending this very important webinar, and we've left some time for questions. I noticed that we still have 2 questions in the chat, and so if you have additional questions, please feel free to go ahead and add those, and we will try to answer them as well as we can. The first question was about prompting the victims to prepare by asking for an email or phone number from the offender, so that they can track them with their phone provider. So what advice I don't know if this would be you, Detective, or Ross, but what would be the best way to prepare, a victim?
Cease the communication as soon as the offense occurs. That's the simplest and most direct answer.
Okay.
No further engagement.
Okay. Thank you. And then there is a question about what would be the legalities of such a case where a picture is AI generated and that the person is traced. Would they suffer any consequence as far as law enforcement or judicial consequences?
Yeah, I can take a stab at answering this. And let me try it this way. Federal law does make it illegal to produce or distribute, receive, etc. Images of child pornography, which is defined in federal law to be images of children engaged in sexually explicit conduct, which sexually explicit conduct is itself defined in law to include various things. The definition of all this cover is broad enough to cover both actual images of actual kids. It covers deep fake images, that is to say, like a morphed image that depicts a kid engaged in sexually explicit conduct. And there is a separate law that reaches purely AI generated images of kids. So doesn't show an actual kid, doesn't show an identifiable kid, but it's just a purely fictitious child engaged in sexually explicit conduct. There's a separate law, an obscenity law, that criminalizes the production and receipt and et cetera of that kind of material as well. And so, the top line answer is yes, this stuff is illegal under federal law. I hope that's responsive.
Thank you.
Same is true for Maryland state law as well.
Thank you. Tina, I was wondering if something happens, what's a good way to collect evidence from a phone to report it to the cyber tip line?
So, as has already been mentioned, we want to make sure that we're not deleting anything. But you can provide as much information as you have about the offender. So screen names, if you have a screenshot of their profile. We just don't want you taking any screenshots or pictures of the explicit content. But if it's like chat logs, like conversations, that's helpful. Definitely any kind of screen names, links to their profiles, any information that you have at all about the offender, as well as the victim's profile is really helpful. Again, we don't want you to delete anything. And we do recommend that you also, after you report to the cyber tip line, you also report it directly to the app so that the ball is rolling kind of on both ends to take action.
Thank you. We have one question and one comment, and I think they kind of go together, so I'm going to kind of put them together. But the question was, does it happen to elementary school students in our county? And then someone wrote down below about her child being contacted in Roblox by someone who was pretending to be a child their age, and he was hiding his chats. And they thought he was chatting with just friends. And then they reported it to Roblox and deleted. But who in the moment, what can we do when this happens? Obviously, the child was very upset. But yes, it does happen to elementary school students in our county. It happens to kids of all ages who have access to social media and or gaming. That is becoming very frequent as well. I'm a former media specialist in the county, and I had a student who was a fifth grade student who was contacted by an adult in another state. And she thought that was someone, she knew he was a little older, but she didn't know he was that much older. And we just happened to catch that in time. So yes, it is happening. It is something that you need to be aware of, which is why we thought this was very important for people of, parents of students of all ages.
Can I just say thank you for sharing that experience, because that helps others that are here understand that this is really happening. And at NCMEC, we've gotten reports of this happening on all platforms and very young children. And so it's helpful when we talk about this so that we understand that, one, we're not alone, that this is happening to other people, and also what we can do to help advise like our peers if they hear about something like this happening.
Yes, and it's very as the guest noted, that the child felt that this person had reached out and was in love with them. And that happens because we're young and, they're young and they're, and so they're appealing to that side of children. Okay, so last question, or another question. We discussed a lot about adults targeting children, sometimes criminal organizations, but what are the statistics maybe for the local peer-to-peer and like after a breakup or bullying in school?
I don't have great statistics on that, just that we get those cases regularly, a part of the total number of cases that we get, like child on child, local child with local child. It does happen. It's more so the case that this comes from outside of our country, or on the other side of our country, going down tighter. Yeah, we do have some students that do this to other students within Montgomery County, but more often than not, it's occurring from overseas as a source.
Especially the
Let me just-
financial.
Oh.
Beth, can I just add one thing to this question? Just one thing we do see happening more and more in the United States with school-age kids is less like the sort of sextortion thing and more like kids using artificial intelligence technology to generate sexually explicit deepfakes of their classmates, their peers, their teachers, whatever. And well, this is kind of new still, but like as these AI tools are becoming more and more available and very easy to use and produce really realistic looking outputs, we're seeing this more and more. What we think is happening is the kids are doing this less out of like, for purposes of sort of sexual gratification or sextortion or malice, and more out of like curiosity or teasing or maybe even like some bullying. But it's just it's a problem. It's a real problem, but it's a different sort of problem. And it's something that we're definitely starting to hear more and more about within schools, that kids are doing that to each other. Just wanted to put that out there since the question was asked.
And I'd also like to add the piece of, the reports that we're receiving, at least at the National Center, are primarily of we're seeing this as like people that are not within the child's community. A lot of the offenders are outside of the United States. But we do believe that there is underreporting of sextortion that is happening like peer-to-peer and in terms of like as a form of relationship violence. Because just like we know with all forms of relationship violence, it's harder to report somebody that you have this relationship with in person, that other people are connected to. You feel less likely to be believed. And so it's harder for us to track those incidents because frankly, like people are less likely to report that.
And we have one final question, thank you for that, about a high school student whose parents are trying to get the passwords for the child, and the child says that she does not have to share her account information, and any advice on how to obtain passwords. I'm not sure if that's for Montgomery County Public Schools or if that is maybe a different kind of set of passwords. I'm thinking Instagram, Snapchat, that kind of thing. Dane, I know you referred to that in your presentation.
Can you just repeat the question one more time?
What would you advise a parent if their child is resistant to give their passwords?
Take the phone. Take the phone away. Now it's the parent's phone. Now the kid doesn't have the phone. There you go.
There you go. And there's one more question. With 4 kids in camp this summer and AI taking a bigger role in the bullying environment, as Ross, you mentioned, who would be a good source to connect with our camp's staff management? I'm assuming you mean maybe the question is, I don't know if the question is someone presenting through their staff. Maybe that person can add to that. Yes. Okay. So who would be like maybe a good source to connect with the camp's staff management? Well, if it's in with the Montgomery County, I don't know if would be you, Dane, or no. I don't know.
Can you repeat the question? I apologize.
Sure. Students in camp over the summer and AI taking a bigger role in bullying, who would be a good source to connect with the camp staff management?
I mean, I usually talk to PTAs and some faith-based organizations about all of this, and they're more than welcome to, or more than happy to do something for them as well, to give them some, I guess, tools and education around this problem set. Yeah.
We also,
Beth,
NCMEC is also happy to, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tina. Go.
I was just saying, NCMEC, I was going to say, we train and like child serving professionals all the time, and we love connecting with camps and any kind of child serving organizations. We have a partnership with the American Camp Association. So if you reach out to us, I can put an email in the chat. We're more than happy to try our best to help facilitate that.
Thank you. Well, that's all the questions that we had in the chat, in the question and answer. And I again want to thank our presenters, our internal and external partners in this very important presentation for our families. And we will be uploading this video to our MCPS YouTube page. So please let your community members know, let your neighbors know that they can come back and see the webinar, if they have other, for their own time. But thank you again for spending your evening with us.